3, 2, 1.
At this time, I want to invite you to join in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the Sumter School District March 22nd, 2021 Board of Trustees meeting work session. All persons wishing to attend the virtual meeting may do so via YouTube, Sumter School District Board meeting, and Sumter School District Facebook page. Due to COVID-19 and in compliance with recent public health orders, no members from the public will be able to attend the meeting in person. This meeting is held in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. The news media has been notified, and a copy of the agenda has been made available to the public. The mission of Sumter School District is to equip students to be responsible, successful, and productive citizens in a global society. Mission. Sumter School District mission is develops and cultivates competitive students who embrace diversity, act responsibly, and contribute positively to society. Our board members are yours truly, Barbara Jackson, Area 7 Chairwoman, J. Frank Baker, Seat 8, Vice Chairman, Darrell McGaney, Area 5 Clerk, Brian Alston, Area 1, Cheryl Ray, Area 2, Matthew McLeod, Area 3, Gloria Rose Lee, Area 6, Sean Reagan, Seat 9, Robin Mills, the Deputy Director of Installation Support from Shore Air Force Base, will be joining us via Zoom, and she's from Shore Air Force Base, a representative. Our Superintendent, Penelope E. Martin Knox, and Amy M. Hanson, our Administrative Assistant.
Johnny Hilton is here also.
Dr. Hilton, Johnny Hilton. I skipped that one. I'm so sorry, Dr. Hilton.
Not a problem, it's okay.
Please forgive the head, not the heart. Area 4.
You're forgiven, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. We're now down to call to order. This meeting is now called to order. Good evening. I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to the March 22nd work session and thank you for your interest in Sumter School District. We're now down to the approval of an agenda, and upon consensus and with no objections, the agenda will stand approved as written. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. At this time, I invite trustees to share any announcement, and I will begin sharing that trustees will participate in an upcoming workshop with the SCSBA on March 29th. that is one that I wanted to remind you of. And are there any other announcements from trustees?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Bryan.
on Wednesday, March 17th, 2021, I attended the SCASPA Virtual Advocacy Day. I just sent to Amy a copy of the handout to share with the rest of the trustees on some important information concerning legislative updates and things that's happening around the State House.
Thank you, Ms. Alston. Anyone else? Yes, Dr. Hilton?
I had the privilege of visiting, last week, Sumter High, Lakewood High, and Crestwood High.
Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on down to the committee chairman. Will you please, make any committee reports at this time? I will, on behalf of the Citizen Advisory Committee, we are in the final phase of confirming our nominees for this committee, and we're looking forward to confirming the April meeting date very soon. Any other committee chairpersons or designees?
I would just remind everybody that Transportation Ad Hoc Committee will meet this Thursday at 6 o'clock.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Baker. Mr. Alston?
For the policy committee, I know there was a communication sent out today to policy committee members regarding their availability for an April meeting. If trustees have not responded, please do so at your convenience. As well, please be reminded to submit your nominees for the policy committee for community members. Thank you.
Yes, Mrs.
And Ms. Hanson, did we get the meeting set up for finance?
Yes, ma'am, it is
Okay.
confirmed.
Finance committee will meet on, March 30th, at 6 here.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Ray. Anyone else? Okay. We're now down to the legislative update, and we will now hear from our board legislative contact, Dr. Hilton, to provide
you.
us with the update.
Thank you, ma'am. This information I'm gonna share with you is just a brief summary of an email we all received earlier today, and some of this, I have shared before, so it'll be a little review. So the House is currently debating the state budget, which comes to $9.6 billion. The proposal for K-12 education includes an increase of $50 million to the Education Finance Act, and that's estimated to increase the base student cost from $2,489 to $2,500 per pupil. In addition, a proviso with the budget directs the Department of Education to allocate $23 million of new funds carried forward in the EFA. So we've got more money coming our way. Some of the highlights of the budget appropriations, and again, you've heard some of these before, is $10.2 million to expand full day 4-year-old kindergarten programs, $3 million to increase EIA funding for industry certificates and credentials, $5.5 million to increase funding to place a nurse in every school, and $2 million to increase funding to hire school resource officers. The House continues to debate a bill that creates a process for school boards to apply for one or more of its schools to become schools of innovation. And these schools of innovation, if approved by 2/3 vote of the local school board and 2/3 vote of the State Board of Education, would be exempt from certain state statutes, regulation, and local board policies for up to 4 years. The House agreed to approve and send to the Senate a joint resolution to allow homeschool students that were enrolled in the public school for the beginning of either 2019-20 or 2020-21 to participate in interscholastic activities of a public school district. The bill is to address students who were enrolled in public school but then were homeschooled as a result of COVID-19. The House Education Committee amended and approved to send to the full House a bill allowing a school district to hire non-certified teachers in an amount not to exceed 25% of a school or career center's teaching staff if the school or career center has vacant teaching positions 5 days before the beginning of the school year. The non-certified teachers must possess a bachelor's degree or graduate degree in the subject area and must have at least 5 years of relevant workplace experience as determined by the local school board. Also, unanimously approved by the House Education Committee and sent to the full House was a joint resolution encouraging districts to develop an emergency sick leave plan using elementary and second school emergency release funds. These are some COVID funds. The House Education Committee also approved to send to the full House a bill mandating public schools beginning in 2022-23 to make the following test available to homeschool students if the test is available to students in the public schools. The AP test, the PSAT, the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, the Pre-AC test, and college and career readiness assessments and summative assessments. Bills of note in the Senate is that Bill S-674 prohibits anyone who's convicted of, pled guilty, or pled no contest to a felony from serving as the chief financial officer of a school booster club. Another bill in the Senate, S-676, would enact the Equal Opportunity Education Scholarship Account to provide public funds for students to pay for private school expenses. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hilton, for your update. Thank you. We're now down to the superintendent's report, and Dr. Martinox, I invite you to provide the information listed under your superintendent's report, and you may proceed to the next topic upon completion of each report or presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Chairwoman Jackson, Vice Chairman Baker, members of the school board. This evening, we have 4 items that will be presented under the superintendent's report. And the first beginning with 4.1, which is a request to name the building. That will be presented by Ms. Sharon Teague, who is the Director of Adult Ed. Sharon, are you still there?
She's there. She just needs to unmute. Yeah. She is just trying to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Good evening.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm on my home computer. It's a little different. Yes, I appreciate you giving me the time tonight to talk to you about something that's come up several times over the years, and that is naming the adult ed building after Virginia Ray, who was the director who preceded me. I included in my PowerPoint this picture of the Adult Ed Center, and Mrs. Ray, even though she was not the director when we got the building, she did a lot of work behind the scenes. Dr. Baker, I think, could attest to that, working with Dr. Baker and Dr. Jefferson, the two superintendents at the time, showing the need that we had for such a building. And you can see the sign that says Sumter County Adult Education, and that's what we would like to be able to change to the Virginia Kaiser Ray Center. And could I see the next slide, Amy? And that's Mrs. Ray there, but the next slide. Amy, are you controlling? Amy, do you have the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay. The next slide. It's not coming up here. Okay, this shows, it's just a short thing showing she was a graduate of Florida State and later the University of South Carolina. Go ahead to the next slide, Amy. Okay, she was certified, as you can see, in multiple areas, and believe me, she used all those areas during her career. We can go on to the next slide, Amy. She started her career at the Air Force Academy High School in Colorado Springs. She was there for 2 years as a business teacher and married an Air Force person. And because he got transferred to Shaw, she of course came to Shaw. And that's where she stayed here in Sumter. For the next 34 years, she worked in Sumter School District 2. First as a 4th grade teacher, later as an assistant principal at Cherryvale and Shaw Heights. Then as a principal at Shaw Heights, which is when I first met her, and a principal at what was High Hills Middle School. From there, she became director of early childhood for District 2. Now, the 2 superintendents at that time, there was a District 2 and a District 17, that was back in 1993, and they decided to combine. We consolidated adult ed before the rest of the district, and so for the last 7 years of her career, she was the adult ed director for the newly consolidated District 2 and District 17 adult ed programs. During that time, she took it from both districts at that time together, served around 600 or 700 students a year. She went from that to, we were serving nearly 5,000 a year. And so that was indeed a huge, huge increase. Next slide, Amy, please. During her time, these are just a few of the awards that she received. We used to kind of joke with her because I think every wall in her office was covered with plaques and awards she had earned, but these are some that I knew she was particularly proud of. She had been the PTA Administrator of the Year. The Twin Award from the YWCA was a tribute to women in industry. She was very proud of receiving that. She worked a lot with the YWCA, particularly with their safe house. She worked with several of the motels in Sumter to get them to donate the little shampoos and little things like that could be donated to the safe house. She had regular clothes drives and things for babies that she did for us to donate to the safe house. She, under her leadership, we won the first ever Sumter Chamber of Commerce Quality of Life Award for adult education. We also received the Community Education National Multicultural Award, which was in the world of adult and community education. She used to always say this, and it's true, it was like getting an Oscar. She received the Chamber's Outstanding Achievement Award for her personally. She was the South Carolina Adult Ed Director of the Year. Shaw Heights, during her principalship, was named a National School of Excellence. And her biggest award was the Order of the Palmetto, which, as you know, is our state's highest civilian honor, and it's given for extraordinary lifetime service. And this is the important part, achievement of national significance. So it had to be not only doing things within our district or within our state, but actually having national significance. And so she was very, very proud of that award. It's given by the governor. In the year she got it, Governor Hodges gave it, and she was one of, I believe, 3 people to have gotten it that year. She was the first ever adult ed director to get it. There's been one since then, and she was among very few educators who have gotten it. So that was something she was very proud of. Could I see the next slide, please? She belonged to a multitude of organizations. I just listed a few here. She was very involved with her sorority, and thanks to her involvement, was able to garner a lot of scholarship money for our students in particular. She belonged to the Forum, which is a group, a women's group here in Sumter, that they are very politically active, not for one particular party or the other, but just in encouraging people, particularly women, to run for office and getting involved in those kinds of activities. She was very involved with SCASA. She was president twice of the adult ed group, and she was, I think, also when she was a principal, she served as president of the principals division. She was on the YWCA board. She was also served on the United Way board, the Workforce Investment Board, which is now the Workforce Development Board. And she served regularly on the Chamber's Education Committee. Amy, the next slide, please. I want to talk a little bit about what an inspiration she was to so many people. She was really a sought-after speaker for various civic groups and organizations. I would say almost weekly, she was being asked by someone to give a talk. She spoke at several national conferences. I was at a conference with her I think it was in Detroit. And later at the airport, I left, I guess, to go to the restroom or something, and I came back, and she had a group of people around her, and she was talking to them about how fortunate we are in the United States to have public education. She was one of the greatest representatives and really the greatest cheerleaders for public education. She would find people everywhere and just go on and on about what we do that's not being offered in other countries, how important it is that we serve every child regardless. Excuse me, I'm allergies and losing my voice. And it was just, that was her rap all the time, was talking about not just adult ed, not just the high school or the elementary schools, but talking about how great it is in the United States that we have public education. That was one of the things that she was recognized for in getting her awards. Stories of her inspiring people to pursue their educational goals seem endless. I still, every week or two, hear somebody telling me about an opportunity that was given to them by Virginia Ray. She encouraged people who work in food services to go on and get their GED and then go on to Central Carolina. We had a student who had a death in her family in Massachusetts, and Virginia bought her a plane ticket to fly her up there and helped her pay for her first semester of college when she returned. She paid just routinely for students who couldn't afford their caps and gowns. She would pay for their cap and gown and that kind of thing. I saw her paying water bills for students and paying electrical bills for students. And that just really sums up the kind of person she was. She was devoted to adult education, yes, but also to public education in general. And she loved being a part of the Sumter educational group. She was very proud of working for District 2 and later, of course, for Sumter School District. And I know that some of you on the board are familiar with Virginia Ray. And our building should have a name on it. We're very proud of that building. It was the first time in South Carolina that a building had ever been built from the ground up just for adult education. Dr. Jefferson and Dr. Baker were the ones who agreed to that, but it took a lot of people working hard to get it. And so my final slide, I think, just asks if you have any questions for me.
Did you get it? Yes. It's okay. Yes.
Any questions?
Any questions for Mrs. Teague? Thank you, Mrs. Teague. We do appreciate your powerful presentation of Mrs. Virginia Kaiser Ray. And yes, some of us do remember her and are very familiar with her. And we do appreciate your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your time. I know you're busy and I appreciate it.
The next item under the superintendent's report is the attendance services update entitled Engaging Students. As many of us know, that one of the challenges that were placed upon us was just capturing children during the pandemic and ensuring that they were involved in the educational process and that we eliminated or removed any barriers that may have existed. And so at this time, Ms. Mixon, who is the coordinator of attendance, will present us with information. as it pertains to the number of students as well as strategies that have been utilized. Amy, can you?
That's Shelley, she's sharing this.
Okay, well, can we check Shelley and tell her that the notes are saying?
Good evening, Chairwoman Dr. Jackson, Vice Chairman Dr. Baker, honorable members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Martin Knox. This evening, I will present information regarding our truant students, non-contact students, and steps our district and the state have taken to regain our students. This slide reflects the truancies reported district-wide on the 45th day and 90th day to the State Department of Education. As you can see in the first column, our 45th day for this school year during COVID was 518 truancies. On the 90th day, it was 580 truancies, with a total of 1,098 total truancies counting for this school year. Last school year, pre-COVID, our 45th day total was 221 truancies, and the 90th day total 852, with a district total of 1,073 for the school year 2019-2020. The high numbers on the 45th day can be attributed to internet connectivity, the acquisition of an adequate supply of hotspots, as well as the fact that the beginning of the school year brought to the forefront that a number of our families have been displaced last spring and throughout the summer. These are truancies reported in Power School, and they have been addressed in a number of ways, which I will speak to later in the presentation. This slide represents the students in our district who are documented as no contact. These students never enrolled and then we lost contact with them. But as you can see through our actions, we were able to locate and re-engage some of these students. So in the first column, you have students with improved attendance at the telephone calls, home visits, truancy procedures, and home visits by the district office staff, 21 students. The second column addresses moved out of district, no show, never enrolled. There's 17 students on that list. Active students with poor attendance after telephone calls, home visits, truancy procedures in place, 37. And then the final column, students dropped for unknown status or non-attendance with truancy procedures in place, for a total of 140 students on that no contact list. I believe that the actual flow chart has been shared with you, but I wanted to share just a few of the main bullets within our attendance tracking procedure. The teachers are our front line of communication and make initial contact with the family when an attendance concern arises. After 3 absences occur, a referral is made to the attendance plan. At this point, a school level team holds an MTSS meeting, aka multi-tiered system of supports, in order to determine the next steps or levels of support. It may be determined that a home visit by the school is the next best course of action. Depending upon the circumstances, a referral to DSS, the Department of Social Services, may be warranted. It is required that the school submits a packet to me as the attendance coordinator, which contains information regarding the documentation on contacts, attempted interventions, and the actual attendance intervention plan, and any other applicable information. Upon receipt of this packet, I attempt to schedule a meeting with the family here at the district office to determine the next course of action or additional avenues of support. If unsuccessful, I then involve the attendance recovery team. As a last resort, a referral is made to family court. In the last slide, you heard me make reference to the attendance intervention plan. I would like to take a moment to explain what that includes. The attendance intervention plan includes the student demographic information, the attendance history, the intervention team members, the nature of the attendance problem, previous actions taken by the school, student, and parent, interventions and actions to be taken in the future by the school, student, and parent, and then of course, signatures. You also heard my mention of the attendance recovery team. This concept was conceived by Dr. Martin Knox in an effort to be proactive in the fight against truancy. Obviously, with the attendance crisis due to COVID-19, the timing of this team has been critical in the efforts to reach our truant students. This team reviews the truancy pattern, conducts additional home visits, and completes a district attendance intervention plan, which may include multiple levels of support for the family. Our response cycle includes interventions, stakeholder involvement, and outcomes. Possible interventions may include phone calls, send letters, emails, provide assignments and packets, MTSS referrals, home visits, attendance intervention plans, incentives, check-in, check-out process, face-to-face meetings, counseling, DSS referral, family court visit petition, affidavits, McKinney-Vento referrals, technology assistance, immunization assistance, and provision of the parent portal. Possible stakeholders involved may include our teachers, attendance clerks, school counselors, nurses, paraprofessionals, social workers, principals and assistant principals, Title I workers, district office staff, the attendance recovery team, the assistant solicitor, law enforcement, Department of Mental Health, Department of Social Services, and Department of Juvenile Justice. Ultimately, we want all of our students in attendance and actively engaged. Ideally, we would want the outcomes to be of a positive nature, such as re-enrollment, consistent attendance, academic success, immunization, consistent communication and support for our families who may be experiencing homelessness. Unfortunately, the outcomes may also include possible court orders or monitoring via DJJ and or DSS. Engage South Carolina is a partnership between the South Carolina Department of Education and Graduation Alliance to assist students and families who may be struggling to adapt to new learning schedules and environments. The parameters involved for the names being submitted are as follows. These are students in grades K through 12 who did not engage in their school's in-person or remote education offerings in the spring or fall of 2020, or are chronically absent, or are in danger of failing one or more classes, or are McKinney-Vento eligible, or are in foster care, or students whose families have requested additional support. We were only allowed to submit 62 names in the fall, and they have just recently asked in February for 45 additional names. And as of today, we were allotted 60 additional slots due to another expansion of that program. As you can see on this Engage South Carolina dashboard, the 62 students that I referred to earlier, they have attempted to contact 34, they have actually contacted 27, and they have been unable to contact 1. I believe we know now more than ever before that it takes a village to raise a child, and we are proving that to be so very true. Because we are in unprecedented times and traveling through uncharted waters, some of our families are just trying to survive. 2 of them that come to mind, the first family, a mother of 3 children, had no electricity in her home. We were able to connect her with United Ministries and get assistance to have her electricity cut. The second family, the mother of 2 children, was in a car accident and she is now brain dead. Her elderly grandmother was suddenly tasked with the guardianship of the children. She admittedly had never turned on a computer before. Through these trying times, we have to be the village for our families. Questions?
Are there any questions for Ms. Mixon? Okay. From the game?
Ms. Mixon,
Yes.
looking at the truancy report, notice that your number nearly double, even triple from 2019 to 2020 and 2021. Do you have a breakdown of the demographics of those individuals?
I do not at this time, but I will confer with Dr. Martin Knox to obtain that information to you.
I would like to
That's
have,
great.
if you don't mind, would you be so kind to get that information to me? Also,
I will.
thank you. Also, the no contact students,
Yes.
the same thing. Do you have a breakdown of the demographics for that as well?
I do have that.
Okay.
So, the students that are attending in that first column, we have 2 elementary students, 3 middle school students, and 16 high school students. In the second column, those that moved out of district, I have 11 elementary students, 2 middle school students, and 4 high school students. For active students with poor attendance, I have 13 elementary students, 3 middle school students, and 21 high school students. And then those dropped for unknown status or non-attendance, I have 1 elementary, 1 middle, and 63 high school students.
Is it my understanding that, looking at the attendance intervention plan, that you have a number of individuals responsible pretty much for checking balance as far as checking on them at home or prior to them, being lost per se?
Yes, absolutely. At the schools, they're taking action as quickly as they can, and like I shared, the teachers are on the front line. When we went into all this, the virtual instruction and everything else, teachers were asked to please contact the parents at the very beginning. So all of those pieces were put into place.
Okay, thank you,
The village is at work daily.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, Mr. Austin?
Ms. Mixon, on your district total for the 90th day, for the 2020-2021 school year and the 19-20 school year, I see that we're, this school year, we're only maybe 25 students ahead of where we were last school year. Is there like I don't really see the correlation between COVID and the truancy report from this school year and last school year, considering it's only 25 additional students. Was there some variance for the 2019-2020 school year?
I think I'm hearing you correctly. I hope I did hear you right. The variable for, of course, this year is COVID.
Right.
But for last year, we wouldn't have had any, I guess, direct bearing on that variable for 19-20 and 18-19.
Yeah, it's just concerning that pre-COVID, I mean, we're basically at the same spot we were pre-COVID. And I know we didn't have the interventions in place pre-COVID, but now seeing this, it's like, can we really put the blame on COVID, considering we only have 25 additional students from pre-COVID that's in truancy that's been reported to the State Department? That's why I was asking, was there some variable that you knew, outlier that was there, that could explain why we're basically trending the same way for the past 2 years?
I would like to think that we deserve some credit because we did jump on it very quickly in this school year as far as providing attention intervention plans and providing interventions and using our MTSS teams to be actively involved. I'd like to think that we were trying to do our best to be flexible, to work with our families because they were in crisis. There was a lot of stress, there was a lot of homelessness, there was a lot of variables that had never come into place before in prior. So I would like to think that our work did have an effect on some of those numbers. But as I pointed out, that first 45th day total, of course, it's a little bit higher than the other prior 2 years. And I explained about the internet and hot spots and that kind of thing.
And so, if I may, to address your question, these numbers are just alarming, period. Pre-COVID, COVID, they're just alarming. Hence the redirection of the attendance personnel, because I know that we needed to be more proactive and not reactive. And so when we started looking at our children who were absent from school, be it pre-K through 12, our course of action was taking them to court. I want to make sure that we're giving our families the support that they need. When we talk about families without electricity, when we talk about parents who are hospitalized and unable to work and the children are being transferred to a grandparent, great-grandparent, I can think of another situation that we looked into where the great-grandparent has 6 of the great-grandchildren and it wasn't planned for. But those types of situations place our children at a deficit, and until we know what the problems are, we can address them. We continue to perpetuate it and children don't come to school. So what we're trying to do is take more of a proactive approach with partnering with our police department to do what we call wellness checks, not for punitive sanctions, but just to go knock on the door and say, hey, we've missed you from school. Is there anything, the school's trying to get in touch with you. And so we've tried to jump on that a little more in advance than what we did last year. The other piece is, you know, we have a lot of students who are homeless and they're not classified as homeless. Ms. Nixon, would you talk about the homelessness approach and the supports that we could offer through McKinney-Vento? And then I also want you to go into another approach that we've taken when we talk about the reference or the referral to children to the judicial system for that to be addressed and the barriers that we face, because some of the numbers that you saw last year are some of the same numbers from this year as well. And so to answer your question, you know, the variables look similar pre-COVID, post-COVID, but many of the cases it's the same children. So can you touch on those two pieces for me, please?
Okay. So of course, with the homeless population, those numbers did increase. And in some instances, they weren't necessarily homeless, but they did move in with relatives, or the parent asked a friend to take the child into their home. So we did a lot of affidavits and all of that to make sure that the children were still able to go to their home school. And then, of course, McKinney-Vento, those referrals were made to Title I, so we could provide some additional assistance with that situation. And then also referring them to community resources, such as United Ministries, United Way, so we're using those resources in the community for the homeless. And as far as the next question, or the next comment, is regarding the system, the court system, family court system. And so typically, of course, our family court, our packets for petitioning the court for truancy would be taking place ongoing. However, the family court system was not accepting truancy petitions because they had a backlog of juvenile criminal cases that they were having to try to clear the dockets. And then when the Chief Justice suspended court hearings, they were only holding detention hearings for juveniles. And then in January, beginning of January, he once again suspended the hearings. And they just started back up last Monday. It was the first day back up in the court hearings. However, I have been providing packets. I have been providing packets to family court, and we do have some dates scheduled. But it was made very clear that we could not take all of the spots because the criminal cases take precedence.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I think I saw you, Sean.
No, I don't have.
Oh, I'm sorry. Dr. Bacon.
Thank you. Robin, the no contact students, what or who does that encompass? Does that encompass the kids that we couldn't account for and didn't show up when we started school, or?
Yes, sir. That original list had to be provided to the State Department over the summer. So we had an original no contact list that went to them, but we have since, as we go along, have added names to that. And so those are students that may have been enrolled at one point, but that are not enrolled now, we can't find them.
Okay, so what you're saying is that we've only got 140 kids we can't account for?
There is
We dropped 65.
65, yes, sir. Yes, sir, 63 high schoolers, 1 middle schooler, 1 elementary schooler, elementary school person. But,
Okay.
we are continuing, the attendance recovery team is continuing to make home visits to this population to try and find them.
Okay. And the second question, if I understand you correctly, because of the backlog, we haven't actually carried any students or families to family court yet. Is that
No,
correct?
sir.
Okay, and my last question, you may not have this information, but if you would get it for us, did you take a look at the 90-day enrollment for last year versus the 90-day enrollment for this year?
I have the enrollment total from last year and the enrollment total for this year.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking for, is the 90-day enrollment for last year and the 90-day enrollment for this year.
Okay. Yes, sir. I'll get with Dr. Martin Knox and we'll provide that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? Any additional questions?
And I may add as well, as Ms. Mixon stated, we are not giving up on our children. Many of the home visits that have been conducted, we found the houses to be empty, and we keep searching for our children. We actually found one child, or thought we found one child, by tracking the device because there was some concerns with her safety. And when they went to that home in another district, it was noted that it was a business park and there was no one there, but the device was targeted as being there. So we're trying every strategy we can think of to kind of regain our children and to determine where they are, because their health and well-being are our priority. And so I just want to thank Ms. Mixon and the team. She stepped into it this year, and I think it took her a few weeks to get her grounding before she was able to move forward. So Dr. Baker, to your question, which also ties into what Mr. Alston said, if we had kids who were of concern last year, they've not been to court yet because of the backlogs. And they just started going back. So we still have not stopped trying to search for those children and also providing supports while also a level of accountability. Thank you, Ms. Mixon.
Thank you.
And the next 4.3 is the Office of Finance, the General Fund Statement of Revenues and Expenditures through February 28th. That would be Ms. Miller.
Good evening. Good evening, Chairman Dr. Barbara Jackson, Vice Chair Dr. Baker, board members, and Superintendent Dr. Martin Knox. This evening, we will discuss the general fund revenue and expenditures as of February 28, 2021. You will notice several adjustments made this month. First, revenue code 1510, interest on investments. Based on the lower interest rate percentages, we have reduced this projection of interest on our investments by $195,000. Moving down on the revenue section, we have adjusted the state revenue reduction from 3.7 million to 250,000. Although we do not know if a reduction in revenue will occur or if it will not occur, we have removed it from this projection and believe we will still be in good financial position should that reduction in fact occur this year. The remaining 250,000 reduction is the projected reduction in the bus revenue decrease for the year. The last item adjusted for revenue is the student count. This was reduced by approximately $165,000 based on projected student enrollment. We used a combination of the 45th and 90th day counts to determine a projected number. The total revenue projected increased by $3.5 million to a total of $128,038,569. Please keep in mind that these figures will vary depending on actual results for the year. Are there any questions before I move over to expenditures? Okay, going over to expenditures. Various expenditures have been adjusted based on known facts and anticipated projections as of February 28, 2021. These figures will continue to change as we progress through the remainder of the year. Payroll has been adjusted based on the projection of payroll as of February 28, 21, decreasing salaries and benefits by approximately $2 million. As stated previously, as we progress through the year, the payroll projection becomes more and more precise. This variance is a direct result from vacancy and changes in positions. If all vacancies would have been filled, this amount would not be available for other expenditures. Moving down to expenditure code 311, this projection was adjusted and decreased by $371,000 as a result of being able to use alternative funding sources to pay for items such as our international teachers. Reductions to the projections were also made to expenditure 325, rentals. That was adjusted $115,000. Expenditure code 331, pupil transportation, was adjusted by $55,000. And expenditures 332, travel, was adjusted by $100,000. All of these were a result of COVID-19 and a reduction in those specific categories. Those projections could vary depending on activity in this last quarter of the year and if we have an increase in those categories. Moving down, expenditure 420, lost textbooks. This was increased by $100,000. We have seen an increase in textbooks that were not returned, which is a result of COVID-19 and virtual learning. And lastly, expenditure 690, other object codes, was adjusted by $239,000. And this is just to reflect the budget for nurses. It was originally included in this code, and it is actually being charged up in salaries. And so we reduced this projected expenditure. So this total reduction of expenditures is approximately $2.8 million, bringing total expenditures to $123,952,240. Other financing sources, 5230, transfer from EIA was increased by $184,000 based on the state's estimates as of February 28th. And then code, in your other financing uses, code 710, transfers to other funds, was increased by $1.7 million, and this is for the anticipated transfers to cover food service fund loss. The net result of the revenue and expenditure changes is a total in projection of approximately $4.8 million, bringing the projected change in fund balance to approximately $4.8 million. Please keep in mind these figures will change as we continue and could change significantly depending on several variables such as legislation being passed, grant funding changes, meaning less funding received in other funds that the general fund may have to cover, and changes in staffing through the remainder of the year. Are there any questions?
Okay, let's talk about the Baker's plan first, and then we'll go to, Reverend McAney.
I just got two quick ones, Ms. Miller. On object code 130, supplement and substitute salaries, we, look like we are, well, 130 is overtime. We're 402,574, so where would that overtime be coming from if we're doing virtual and all kinds of other things?
That is supplemental pay and overtime pay, so that includes your stipends, not just overtime.
All right, stipends such as lead teacher and
Yes, sir.
that type thing, okay? And my other question was the Pupil Services, the $464,000, and we only had $940 budgeted.
I'm sorry, what was that code number?
That would be 313.
313. Pupil Services. Yes, sir. This is where we had to outsource several items, and so these are contract services that were outsourced. We had talked about that before. We had various, everyone help me. I think we had social workers, some teachers. These were our contract services
Right.
that were hired.
Yeah, and my follow-up to that, and I remember that, was with our CARES money, was with the social services or the social workers, were we able to roll that in and pay for that out of CARES?
We have not included that in a budget item at this point. That is something that we could consider if they would approve that, and we could support that it was a direct result of
Direct result of
COVID-19.
COVID.
We would have to have documentation that that's what it was from, not a position that we would normally have.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Miller, thank you for your presentation. Can you run over 710 again for me?
You said 710, sir?
Yes, 710, transfer to other funds.
Yes, sir. 710 is where we have to transfer out of the general fund to another fund. We have several funds that are not.
Can you name it? Can you list it? Those other funds?
I
For
do not have
example?
all of them. I do not have all of the breakout with me, but I can tell you the majority of that is your food service fund. We are expecting a significant loss in that fund this year.
Understood.
While we retain the current employees, and food cost has actually gone up, and we have also incurred an increase in products that are needed to make sure we're following compliance and safety requirements, but our revenue source has gone down significantly. So the majority of that is a transfer over to food service.
About 80%? About 80% food service?
Again, I'd have to calculate it. I know I just increased it by 1.7 million for food service, so 1.7 was on top of $1 million that was already in there for food service. So that's 2.7 million of the 3.9 that is definitely food service.
Okay,
Any other questions, John?
that's it, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Alston?
Ms. Miller, with the legislature unfreezing teacher step increases, how is that going to impact where we currently are right now?
We will have to increase expenditures in that category, but I have built in an anticipated amount. Again, I am not certain what that exact amount is going to be for the step increase yet. They have not given us our allocation. It's very unique this year because it's of teachers that are on record as of March 1st, that the allocation will be given to us to pay out to the teachers. So I do not know how much will be allocated to us, but I have built in an increase in step already within that number that's projected.
And would you explain to him that the state provides us with a certain portion of that which has not been disclosed? I think I just said it, but can you say it, please?
Yes, ma'am. The state does provide a step increase up to the state's salary schedule. We all know that the Sumter School District salary schedule is approximately 10% higher than that of the state. And so the amount, we know we're gonna have to cover a portion of that, but we do not know the exact amount that the state is going to provide at this time.
Thank you.
Any additional? Dr. Hilton?
Thank you, ma'am. Jennifer, have we received any of the second round of CARES money? It was anticipated to be 22 or 23 million. Have we received any of that yet?
No, sir.
When do you think that might be coming our way?
The reason we cannot receive that yet is you have to fully spend CARES 1 before you're allowed to spend CARES 2. We just submitted a amendment to the state, last week, because as we all know, we built in 2 years of, line items in CARES 1 that were to cover salaries for building service and nurses and social workers that we needed. So we did file an amendment to move some of that out so that we can get it spent this year, so that we can then move over to the ESSER 2 funds.
Okay, that's a good plan. So looking at the fund balance, it's gone up. Last month, it was projected at about 25 million, was it?
We were pretty much at a break even last month in our projection of the change in fund balance, so yes, 25 million.
But this month, it's gone up to 30 million. So it went
Yes,
up,
sir.
it went up about 5 million in projection on the fund balance from last month to this month.
Yes, sir.
And that's primarily because you took out the anticipated cut in revenue from the state.
Yes, sir.
So, not to beat a dead horse, I want this horse to be alive, but I still am very interested in, providing some bonus money for our employees or a salary increase. And so I hope that at our next finance committee meeting, which is coming up soon, that we will be able to have further discussions about bonuses, since we don't think we're gonna get cut by the state. And that's $5 million that's back in the pot, so to speak, that last month we didn't think we had. Is that a correct analysis?
Based on information that's available at this point, yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hilton. Any additional questions? All right, Dr. Martin. Thank you, Mrs. Miller, and Ms. Mixon too. I did not thank Mrs. Mixon. We do appreciate you and your presentation as well. But thank you so much, Jennifer.
4.4, the Office of Finance for Capital Projects.
Oh, you're welcome.
I do also have capital projects to discuss.
You didn't hear me, I'm sorry. I thought you heard me.
No, I didn't hear you, I'm sorry. That's why you were looking at me?
Yeah, I was talking under the mask.
Couldn't read the lips. All right, next we have the capital projects as of February 28, 2021. I have the various funds that I've provided the information on, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take those questions.
Any questions on the capital projects?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Dawson.
On the Fund 523, to be spent by fall 2022, there's a line item for $150,000 for furniture. Is that district-wide or is that allocated to certain schools?
I'm sorry, I could not hear the question.
The line item for furniture for 153, was that for one school or is that district-wide?
Let me see which fund, do you know which fund we
Fund
want?
523.
523? 523. That was, not designated to any specific school in Fund 523.
If I could follow up with that. Madam Superintendent, when there's a need for furniture in the district, how does that process look? Do it come from the principals or does it comes from building services or someone?
It comes from the principals as they assess their furniture. And then when they are having budget meetings like those that are occurring as we speak. Did we finish? We didn't finish. We just finished budget meetings, right? And principals bring their asks to the table. And then we have those conversations. And sometimes it occurs if I'm doing a school visit and I see furniture that may need to be replaced. There has been a cycle in the past, where schools would be replenished in terms of their furnitures, but we're getting back into the business of doing that.
My reason for asking that question is that 150 just seems extremely low for a district-wide to address the furniture needs.
And we're looking to address some furniture needs, in other ways.
Okay. Anyone else have a question on the capital projects? All right, Brian.
I'm sorry. I know at one of the previous meetings we discussed the marquees being addressed at certain schools. Has that list been updated to address some of the marquees that definitely need to be replaced or attention brought to them?
So we've looked at them, but we've not made any action moving forward on them. I know that there were 3 schools that we talked about that had marquee needs, but then I think we had some schools that were addressed because we were talking about marquee size in comparison to the number of students who were enrolled. But again, while we're having those budget meetings right now, those items would be a topic for us to bring forward for consideration.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? No? Thank you, Mrs. Miller, for that report.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
You're welcome.
That concludes the superintendent's report for the evening.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Martin Knox, for your report. Okay. We're now down to executive session. We are going to enter into executive session for the receipt of legal advice, where the legal advice relates to pending, threatened, or potential claims, discussion of proposed property contractual matters, and discussion of proposed contractual matters. There is no designated amount of time or how long we will be in executive session. Therefore, if you are unable to be with us upon our return to the open session, we'd like to thank you for your support and wish you a great week. May we have a motion? Is there a motion to enter into executive session?
Madam Chairwoman, I move that we enter into executive session for receipt of legal advice where the legal advice relates to pending, threatened, or potential claims, discussion of proposed property contractual matters, and discussion of proposed contractual matters.
Second.
Okay. There was the motion to enter into executive session for receipt of legal advice, where the legal advice relates to pending, threatened, or potential claims, discussion of proposed property contractual matters, and discussion of proposed contractual matters. Are there any questions? If not, would you prepare to vote? Will Mrs. Miller be able to vote this bill,
No, she does. No.
I make the motion, Reverend Gainey, second.
Reverend Cannon?
No, okay.
Reverend Gainey, was second.
Please cast your vote, please.
is unanimous.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously, and the board is now in executive session. There is no issues for us to vote on tonight, so we're now down to the closing of our meeting. And I'd like to say again, I appreciate your presence and ask that you continue to be safe, wear your mask, practice social distancing, and consider the vaccine once you are eligible. Have a blessed week, and we do appreciate you being a part and attending with us this evening. With no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 7:59.
Record.
Thank you.